About a year ago, I made a video about why I thought Stardock's Galactic Civilization 4 got released in early access on Epic via a 1-year exclusivity deal, and the reason why it seemed fishy, to say the least. Well, as you are going to see in today's video, it turned out Irad was right, and oh boy, it's even worse than I thought. Hello and welcome to the channel, it's Irad here, and today we are going to talk about Galactic Civilizations 4, which finally released a couple of weeks ago on Steam via early access a year after it released in its alpha version on the Epic Games Store in early access, obviously also. And before you ask, yes, I instantly bought it. I am a fan of Stardock's. I own most of their games. I played thousands of hours of Sins of a Solar Empire. I also played all of their Galactic Civilizations games. It really is a franchise I've been following for decades at this point. And so, of course, when the latest entry to the franchise, Galactic Civilizations 4, was announced, I was really thrilled to know that the series would live on and benefit from more improvements. But then I quickly got disappointed to learn that it would be on the Epic Store. Again here, an online store that I personally refuse to endorse due to its links with the Chinese, as right now Tencent has a share of 40% in the company. It's way too much in my opinion, and I try to avoid as much as possible to fund this oppressive communist totalitarian regime that in my eyes has values that are at the opposite of my moral compass. Not to mention that I live in Taiwan, a country that is regularly threatened to be invaded by China because of its democratic model, which threatens their domestic propaganda and thus the people in power. Anyway, enough politics here. I just wanted to let you guys know why I refuse to buy anything on Epic, and therefore I did not buy Galactic Civilizations 4 when it became available for purchase in alpha stage for the price of $40 American, a sum that is reasonable for a brand new game, although early access games usually tend to be sold at a discounted price before their final version eventually comes out. And so, as mentioned in the introduction, back in the days, I made a video about why I thought it was unfortunate that the sequel to the series was made an Epic exclusive, and why I thought what I thought the reasons were. To summarize what was said in the video, I thought that the reason Stardock chose to make it an Epic exclusive was for two reasons. The first one was that the game was still being an alpha, and being an original Star Citizen backer, I know a thing or two about games being in alpha, so there were probably quite a few missing features, and the game was probably quite buggy, and gamers usually are not aware of how game development works, so it's understandable that they would have complained about it in the review section in online game stores, such as, for example, Steam or GOG, which would have resulted in poor ratings, which would then have ruined the reputation of the game, which would have led to disappointing sales. This theory was then confirmed by a large amount of people in the comment section of my video who did tell me that the game was indeed buggy and featured questionable game design choices that they didn't like, going as far as saying that Stardock was not listening to its fan base. The second reason that I mentioned was money. The truth is that Stardock is not a big company, and that times are more and more difficult financially wise, and that the company was probably in need of money. And what do you do when you need money because you have paychecks to send? Well, you release a game too early, and as you're going to see in this video, when you will discover what happened next, it turned out that the financial reason ended up being true as well, because there is no way Stardock would have pulled off what they did if it wasn't for the money. And here I will talk about the release of the so-called Supernova extension for Galactic Civilizations 4, which is nothing short of an outright scam, and thank God I am not an Epic customer, because if I had been, I would have been infuriated by what Stardock did. You see, eventually, Epic's exclusivity ran out and Galactic Civilizations was sold on Steam, still as an early access game, but in a version that's much closer to the release version of the game, except that Stardock has not been selling it as Galactic Civilizations 4, but Galactic Civilizations 4 Supernova, a quote-unquote standalone expansion of the game that includes additional content, especially the integration of ChatGPT, which allows the creation of AI-generated civilizations for the game, which we'll take a look at the end of this video. The other feature that comes with the so-called expansion are so trivial that they should have been in version 1.0 anyway. We're talking about various visual and gameplay upgrades that are normally part of the development of a game. So far, you would say that there's not much that's abnormal. We've seen a lot of developers sell content in DLCs that should have been in the base version, except that remember that Steam customers never had the base version, and that for them, the Supernova standalone is the base version, which sounds great. Well, let me tell you, for Epic customers, it is not great at all, because if you are an Epic customer and you bought Galactic Civilization 4 in its alpha, buggy, and very much work-in-progress form, well, if you want to have access to its next iteration in the form of Supernova, which is still an early access version, well, surprise, surprise, you will need to pay, in addition to the $40 you've already spent, an additional $16, which will later be risen to $20 if you want to have access to the latest version of the game. And as you can guess, Epic customers are confused, to say the least, when they are not livid. I mean, let's try to put ourselves into their shoes. They paid the full price, $40, for the alpha version of the base game, which ended up never being released out of early access because another version called Supernova would then be released still in early access. And to have access to it, they would have had to pay an extra $16. While if you buy it on Steam for the original $40, you have access to the entire content. Well, if that is not an outright scam, it surely is very questionable business practice here, and I totally understand the people who bought the alpha version on Epic and who feel like they actually paid money to be used as alpha testers. I mean, can you imagine paying $40 to pay for an alpha version and then having to pay an extra $16 to have access to the latest version, while on Steam, new players can have access to everything for the original price? This is outrageous. Now, I'll be frank with you, I did buy the game on Steam. Also, since I live in Taiwan, the price is not $40, but $16. It seems that Stardock has a regional pricing policy to reflect on local purchasing power, so that is commendable. And do I like the game? Yes, I do. It is a good sequel to Galactic Civilizations 3 with some really good improvements, and I will make a review about it in due time. However, it's not because I am genuinely enjoying the game that I should turn a blind eye on such business practices that, quite frankly, should not be happening in the first place, and that is why I chose to expose them in today's video. Now, before we leave, a quick look at the AI-generated civilizations which serve as a justification for this Supernova extension, and quite frankly, they are not indispensable. You can create them via this panel here. All you have to do is to add a small description, a name for the leader, I'll call him the Eradicator here, and a name for the civilization. And the AI will write a description, which is quite cool, but not without a couple of grammar mistakes, which is quite immersion breaking for me. Also, the AI can generate some images that can represent your civilization, but these are not animated, unlike the bespoke civilizations of the game. In addition, it doesn't come with AI-generated avatars for its citizens, nor does it create any AI-generated logo for the civilization. It's just a bunch of AI-written text, and the images here are nothing very impressive here for me. This also does not justify the price Epic customers have to pay to get access to this. I would personally gladly play the game without the AI-generated civilizations. It just wouldn't make any difference. So there we have it, guys. Why I was right last year in my video explaining the reasons why Galactic Civilization 4 was released on Epic first, and also how Epic customers got scammed because they need to pay an additional $16 on top of the $40 they paid first, while Steam players get access to all of Galactic Civilizations 4, including its fake expansion Supernova, for $40, the same price Epic customers paid a year ago. But let me know in the comment section down below, guys, are you an Epic customer? How do you feel about Stardock's pricing policy? I would really like to know your thoughts down there. And as always, I wouldn't have been able to make this video without my Patreon and YouTube members, including Dr. Frobin, Zeo Crusher, and Deplorable Infidel. I've been Iran. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys later.